What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso. Sunday AM Coffee. Today's episode, I'm going to run through the top remaining needs on the Jets roster as the NFL draft gets sneaky close. I mean, it's still like a little bit over a month away, but you know it's going to come up fast. And we know we're going to be in draft guide season, and there'll be a couple other transactions between now and then, but this is kind of a quieter period for that kind of activity until I think you see a bit of a flurry of obviously not just draft picks, but also veteran moves that usually come in the days before the draft, during the draft, and the days immediately after the draft. So a good time to kind of take a step back, look at where everything sits depth chart wise right now and say, all right, like what are the biggest remaining needs? So for me, number one, at this point is pass catchers as a whole. So the wide receiver and tight end group, right now, the Jets don't have a tight end on their roster who's scored an NFL touchdown. They have two guys in Ruckert and Stone Smart who are, kind of like tight end 2.5s, tight end 3s until proved otherwise, different skill sets. Not saying they're not rostered NFL players, but they're closer to not being rostered NFL players than starters. You'll get receiver. When you get past Garrett Wilson, it's ugly. Allen Lazard's still on the roster. I find it very, very hard to believe he will be on the roster come September. But when you look at what they have on paper right now, I can't 100% say he won't be here. That is obviously going to change. We just feel exceptionally odd to turn the Rodgers page but have Lazard here. I tend to think that if and when Rodgers goes to a different team, Lazard will follow him there, or post-draft, the Jets will move off him. You have Tyler Johnson, who, reasonable low-cost dart throw in free agency, but is really a backup from what we've seen so far. Malachi Corley, we don't know if there's anything there or not. Nowhere to go but up after last year, but can't count anything yet from him. Gibson's not someone you can count on as a receiver. Brandon Smith's, a bottom of the roster guy until proven otherwise, if even that. So pass catchers in totality, the Jets need two more meaningful additions to this group. I would say at least. I think your hope is that you make two more additions, be it through the draft, be it through another veteran move. Maybe it's even really three across both positions, and that between Smart and Ruckert, one of them could become a meaningful contributor. Maybe you're squeezing something out of Tyler Johnson and Malachi Corley, but this is a barren group right now, and I don't think we have to act otherwise. On paper, it's very ugly, and I would say past Garrett Wilson, it's probably the worst collection of tight ends and receivers in the league right now. It's March. The Jets are going to address this in the NFL draft. They are going to make more moves. To me, the number one need, though, is pass catchers. Number two, I'm going to go with defensive line. Now, the Jets, they have NFL players to rotate through with Quinn and Williams, right? Like, I think Leonard Taylor is going to be able to step into a bigger role. I'm sure this coaching staff is excited to work with him. It's a guy who probably should have been like a third or fourth round draft pick last year, and yet the Jets got as an undrafted free agent. There were some flashes. I think he'll play a bigger role. Nandi, a seasoned veteran who's played in many big games and situations for the Chiefs. He's not great, but he can chew up meaningful reps on your defensive line. To a lesser extent, you can get that out of Cowart and Telefe too. These guys can play as rotational pieces. You need another addition without a doubt. That's why I would have no problem with Mason Graham. Or the Jets taking defensive tackle very seriously in round 2 or round 3 with the amount of depth at that position in this draft. They certainly need another fat guy up front to work with Quinnen. Edge, I'd like a third edge to rotate through. You could, is that a Za'Darius Smith type? Is it someone else they could get on a 1-year flyer? Just as Jermaine works himself back, you'd like a third guy in there. And you'd certainly like to make these other additions so a guy like Clemens is not taking up a roster spot. So, the Jets threw a lot of bodies in free agency here, right? The Telefe and Nande and Cowart and Weaver even. So those four guys they added to the mix. Still need more because of the quality of guy that they added. This is a position to watch early in the NFL draft as well. And, why I think you're seeing a lot of mock drafts. Graham or Warren or Tet, is more talking about the pass catcher additions at the top, or is it going to be, right tackle and addressing that, which we'll get to in a moment here. But I think fair to put defensive line second. Third, I will put right tackle. I think we all feel good about Tippmann, AVT, Simpson, Olu. It's a nice core four. The reason I'm putting right tackle third behind the other two, it's not a statement in confidence on Chugs potentially holding that spot down, because I think that could look like a Wayne Hunter situation if you're counting on him to play, a ton of games and start a ton. But, he has started, right? It's not like he's started 40, 50 games in the NFL. You also have Myers, which I think was sneakily a really nice, important addition because it gives you some flexibility and depth. I'm not saying I expect the Jets to move AVT to right tackle. I'm just saying they have some more optionality here. Like Myers is like a borderline starting NFL lineman, right? He's like right there. He started a good amount. He's sort of the perfect guy to be your first interior lineman off the bench. So this isn't like they have some options here is what I'm saying. And like, could Chugs start like 2 or 3 games and you'd be fine? Sure. Could you mess around with Tippmann and Myers and AVT for a couple games and be fine? Sure. I would be totally fine and totally get the Jets drafting a right tackle at 7, or, with their second or third round pick and having that person immediately plug in, or, starting by mid-year. You'd like to see that last spot handled. I just don't think the need is quite as dire as pass catcher or defensive lineman. Once you get past those 3, which I think are the big 3, then I look at safety. So I think we all feel good about the Cisco addition. That makes sense. As it sits right now, you're running it back with Tony Adams, who I think is just better suited to be like a third or fourth guy. It seems as if Stevens will play corner alongside Sauce and Michael Carter. Maybe the Jets will mess around with him being a safety in certain personnel groups or sets. Maybe they feel that way about JBC or Stiggers. Those are holdovers from the previous regime, so it's hard to say. They could use another guy here. You can only draft so many people. I don't want to just be like, well, they can just draft someone at the top who's going to start and contribute. It's a good safety class from everything that Connor has prepped and discussed, and I think that will come through in the guide. Definitely feels like a position worth taking at some point. There's a couple veteran names out there. Blackman's still out there. Like, do you kind of wait and see what shakes free? They need another starter, I would say. I just don't like starting Tony Adams. I think we've tried that for a bit now, and it just hasn't worked. Cisco I like, but I would put that as the fourth need overall. Yeah, linebacker as it stands now, like they're gonna run it with Quincy and Sherwood, and that is fine. I know there's been some rumblings. Could Quincy be a guy that they're gonna look to trade? I would think it's more likely than not he's on the roster. So I guess maybe you could say linebacker could be in the discussion if they were to move off him. I look at actually what I'll round it out with is kicker. They need a kicker still, right? That's important. So I would put that as their fifth need. I hope it's not Greg the Leg. I hope they have a better answer than that. But to me, that's the fifth spot. You feel good about the running back depth chart with Brees and Braylon and Davis. You get what they're doing at quarterback, and you have a proper backup in Tyrod with Fields as the new starter, and Jordan Travis is sort of competing for a roster spot, and they probably draft a quarterback at some point to get in the mix as well. And that's how it kind of, rounds out at the moment. So I'd say my top 5 is number 1, pass catcher, number 2, interior defensive line, or just defensive line in general, because they could use a little more at edge. Number 3, right tackle, number 4, safety, and number 5, kicker. You feel good about the offensive line away from right tackle. You feel good about the running back room. You feel good about lead receiver, lead corner. Feel good about slot corner. You feel good about your speed at linebacker. And, of course, you still have Quinnen up front. So They have the look of a roster that needs a strong draft and needs one to two other smart and targeted veteran moves. And that picture rounds out a lot better, especially if they are a better coach this year. That's the makeup of a team that could go from 5-12 to 8-9 or 9-8 if those things click into place. Better coaching, a successful draft, and one to two other meaningful veteran additions. I'd also like to see them handle extensions for some of their young guys, or at least just Garrett Wilson, to get that done. I'm curious what this list feels like the Sunday after the NFL draft or the Monday after the NFL draft, and how they prioritize in particular those three picks in the top 75. And does it end up being more picks in the top 75 as they trade down at some point? We'll see. But, of everything I said, you can't fix everything with your three picks in the top 73, but could go a long way to making everyone feel a lot better. And I do hope they're open-minded that if you could get, Goddard or Meyer for like a 5th round pick, like go do it and make life a little easier and a little less stressful in how you're, pulling your roster together. If you get Tyler Lockett for 1 year, $7 million to come in and catch 55 passes for 700 yards and have some competence across from Garrett, like not crazy. Maybe instead you're throwing the dart on the Olave trade and hoping he can stay healthy because of the upside with it. You got to do a little something else, particularly when it comes to pass catcher, because we're not talking about, we just draft Tyler Warren and pass catcher is like good. Like you need to do like two and a half things to that overall group to get it back to where it needs to be, or just to get it where it needs to be in general, unless you're getting a very random Tyler Johnson, Stone Smart, Malachi Corley breakout season. And look, of the three guys I just named, one of them will probably be pretty good and do better than we expect. The other two probably will not contribute all that much. But even if that's the case, you're going to need more. All right. Thank you for listening. Doing a little bit of a bundled double drop today. This one talking football, the second one answering kind of some long-standing Discord questions we've had about the actual business of Badlands and kind of what we're doing and where we sit right now. So the other episode today is going to focus on that. Other guys tomorrow, Connor and I with our normal pod Tuesday, our normal War Room Wednesday, Flight Plan Thursday, Draft Season Thursday, Buck the Trend Friday, TOJ Talk Saturday, and back with you for another Coffee Sunday as we wrap March. Draft Guide will be about a week before the NFL Draft. Live show is April 11th. TikTok, we're getting ready. We're getting ready for that one. Also, look out for our first best ball leagues for Underdog hitting soon. We want you guys to participate in that. We'll be giving away a lot of fun prizes there. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your Sunday, and we will talk to you soon.